Well, hello everyone. Today I'm going to be doing an oil change on my 2001 New Holland LB75B. It's a tractor loader backhoe and it needs an oil change. So I'm going to go ahead and crank this thing up, let it idle for about 5 to 10 minutes, get that oil nice and warm, and then we'll get right to it. So if your tractor still has the big yellow panels on the side, of course you got to take those off to access the engine. I have actually taken mine off because they're pretty much busted up. They're still usable, but they're busted, and if you own one of these tractors, you know what I mean. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and crank it up so it can run for a little bit. All right, so it's cranked up and idling right now, and while it's warming up, I'm gonna go ahead and get the oil and the oil filter ready. This takes about 4 gallons of oil, and the oil filter that it's spec'd for is a Ford Motorcraft FL-1A. All right, so I've killed the engine now. I'm gonna pull that drain plug and let all this old oil drain out. I put this 5-gallon bucket down there because we are talking about 4 gallons of oil. So one of those little oil pans that you buy to hold this probably will overflow. So I'm gonna put this bucket underneath there and capture all that oil. Well, it's still draining and it actually comes out pretty fast. Just know that it's a pretty small plug, and once you break it loose, it's coming off pretty quick. So that is why I have a little bit of spillage there. I grabbed it real quick with my hand to put the bucket under there, but as you can see, holds a lot of oil. By the way, that oil plug is a 17 millimeter. It's also good to put a new gasket on your oil drain plug. So I'll put a link to some gaskets in the description of the video, along with the filters you need and the oil you need. All right, so while that old oil is still draining and seeping down into that 5-gallon bucket, I'm gonna take this oil filter off, but I'm gonna go ahead and use a oil filter wrench like this right here. Let's go ahead and pull that off so I can put the new one on. All right, so I got that oil filter off. As you can see here, basically what you've got there, you've actually got a lot of thread. So your oil filter is not gonna just fall off on your hands when you crack it loose. But of course, when you loosen it, it is gonna start pouring out some oil. So be ready and make sure you have a container underneath to catch that. So now at this point, go ahead and date and hour your oil filter and put on the new one. So in this case, I had to get a Fram Extra Guard PH8A. That was a cross-reference filter that fits the same and does the same as the Motorcraft FL-1A. I would have got the Motorcraft because that's what it actually specifies and asks for, but I couldn't find any in stock, so I had to go with an alternative. And next time, hopefully, I'll have multiple in stock and be good. And before you put your new oil filter on, you're going to want to put some oil on the rubber gasket that's on the oil filter, so that makes it easier to come off next time. All right, now that I've lubricated the top of this filter, I'm going to go ahead and thread it on. Like I said, this has a pretty good amount of threads on there. So once it's on, you can just spin it on by hand. And when it comes down to tighten it, really it only needs to be hand tight. You don't need to lug these oil filters down. So you just need to be able to seat well against that rubber seal, hand tight, nice and snug, but that's it. All right, and the new oil filter's on. I'm gonna dispose of this oil filter properly. Get rid of this oil here. It's still barely dripping, but I think it's good enough. I'm gonna put the drain plug back in and fill it up. All right, so as you can see, still getting a little bit of drip, but it's gonna drip forever. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this oil plug back in. Oh, come on now. All right, so I got it hand tight. I'm gonna get a 17 millimeter wrench, slightly tighten that just a little, and then we're gonna be good to put oil back in. All right, so now I'm on the other side of the engine here, and here's where we're gonna put the oil in. And as you can see, your oil dipstick is right here. So we're gonna check the oil with that after we've got it what we think is full, and make sure we top it off properly. But I'm gonna go ahead and take this off now. And it's a plug style cap. So it's kind of like a plug on a boat. You tighten this down, it tightens into that hole. And I usually like to clean this area off before I start putting a funnel or anything on it, just to keep from any outside junk falling into the engine when I'm putting oil in. So I usually just get a shop rag and clean around it, keep it clean. Now I'm gonna put the funnel and start putting the oil. The oil I'm going to be putting in today is SAE15W40 because I'm in Texas, so we don't get too cold of weather here. These are 2-gallon containers. A lot of times, if you're buying 4 gallons, you might as well buy a 5-gallon bucket, but 5-gallon bucket's kind of a pain to fill up, especially while you're holding a flex funnel. So I went with 2-gallon containers so I can fill it up with ease. But I can't hold the camera while I'm doing it, so I'm going to fill it up now and check the dipstick. Since I know it holds about 3.5 gallons to 4 gallons, I put 3 gallons in there, knowing the fact that it's going to have to pump some oil into the oil filter and throughout the system. I'm going to go ahead and put the cap back on, tighten it down, and I'm going to run the engine to get the oil circulating, come back, check the dipstick on it, and fill it up to the appropriate level. Alright, so I cranked it up, just let that oil circulate well. It's always good to come over here where the oil filter is, and while it's running, make sure you don't have any oil leaking anywhere. And also, check your drain plugs and make sure they're not leaking. We're doing good. So now I can turn it off and check the level. Alright, so I'm going to go pull the dipstick out of here, and I'm going to clean it off. It's nice and clean. Put that dipstick back in. Let's see where it's reading. I don't know if you can see that. So it's definitely low. It's reading toward the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and put some more oil until I can get it between those 2 notches, if you can see that. All right, so I don't know if you can see it, but trying to get that to focus in the camera, but we are right between the 2 notches, a little bit high than in the middle, but just barely. But this is pretty much exactly where I want to have it, and there wasn't much oil left in that, so it used almost 4 gallons. I'd say 3.8 maybe, something like that, and that gets you at a good spot. So that's it. I'm going to put the dipstick back in, and I'm going to crank it up, and again let the oil get heated up, and then I'm going to put it away. So that's the oil that came out of there. I'm pretty embarrassed on how black that oil is. I knew it needed an oil change when I bought this, and I didn't change it right away. So I'm going to pour this old motor oil back into the containers where the new motor oil came in so I can dispose of it properly. All right, so if this video was helpful, please give me a thumbs up. Put below in the comments any feedback you have for this tractor or for the oil change, anything I could have done better. Please subscribe to the channel. That's the red button that's right below the video, and that really helps me out. It's kind of like saying a thank you for making this video. So all right, so until the next video, I'll see y'all later. Y'all take care.